Happy April 1st, everyone! I, Kellen, yes that is totally me, am bringing you yet another video. Today we've got the Master of Deception, we've got the Overlord of Trickery, we've got... Ditto? Apart from causing secret smirks from every closet Pokemon trainer who hears the word it's based off of in a casual conversation, Ditto and its transforming antics has a long, unique history dating back to Generation 1. It boasts one of the funniest episodes in anime history, with its transforming antics setting James and Meowth into raucous peals of laughter. Today we'll be examining its competitive history, so how transformative was Ditto actually? Unfortunately, Ditto is absolutely worthless in RBY. It has horrendous bulk, is 2-hit KO'd by everything except Chansey, and it's slow on top of that. It can't even outspeed Chansey, meaning it is incredibly difficult to safely pull a transform off. It also only gets 5 PP of each of its opponent's moves, so forget copying the opponent's Chansey and getting to use 2 Chanseys, or anything that relies on a recovery move for that matter. It also keeps its abysmal critical hit rate, so even if you manage to pull a transform off on Tauros, which seems insanely hard to do because it is, then you probably aren't getting anywhere. The most you might do is get Ditto in as your opponent switches in Snorlax. Hope that they're dumb enough to let you transform into it, and hope they're a set with self-destruct so you get to blow something up and still have your own Snorlax for later. This would actually be pretty good if it wasn't so incredibly situational, i.e. banking on your opponent being stupid and having the right set, and also if it didn't mean you had to pass up on a Pokemon that'd actually be useful. Ditto was novelty, and bad novelty at that. Strangely enough, Ditto continues to be utterly terrible in GSC. Even though it can now hold Metal Powder to give its defenses a 50% boost, it's still slow and still can't do anything to anything unless the opponent lets it copy a Pokemon with Explosion that they cannot then counter. Basically, Ditto's inability to pick and choose what it transforms into holds it back. Not holding leftovers when spikes are everywhere cripples it too. But rest assured, Ditto would be terrible even if it was immune. Also, there's another Pokemon that learns Transform in OU now. Smeargle, and it's actually decent, since it has decent speed and the ability to use other moves. Believe it or not, Ditto's advanced form was once more the epitome of being bad. Tyranitar's permanent Sandstream adds more residual damage to it trying to pull off Transform. As if it didn't have enough issues already, non-maxed out EVs means even less bulk. And Choice Band is a thing now. Oh, and Smeargle still exists. On the next episode of the Don't Use Ditto show, we see that our hero gets Quick Powder in Gen 4. This makes it pretty speedy, outrunning every unboosted Pokemon. However, it's still unbelievably frail, which isn't good when this new generation packs some power creep that made the previous one look like NU. Stealth Rock being on every team obviously hampers it, and Toxic Spikes will absolutely ruin it even if it transforms into a Steel type. Smeargle continues to exist, and so does switching. Thus, Ditto continues to suck. When Generation 5 and the Dream World came out, everything changed, and people were insanely hyped for Ditto. Upon release, it would gain an ability that let it transform as soon as it switched in. This was absolutely perfect. Its issues of speed, bulk, and the opponent switching out were no longer factors. With the terrifying slew of threats running around, Choice Scarf Ditto would turn the tables on them no matter what. Even a Dragonite with 6 Dragon Dances under its belt would be destroyed. The only exception would be if it copied an opposing Choice Scarfer, in which case it'd be a 50-50. But that really wasn't what it was trying to do, and you could do worse as far as last-ditch efforts go. It took until Black and White 2 for Imposter Ditto to see the light of day. It didn't make as much of an impact on the metagame as initially predicted, but when it did see use, it countered the brutal hyper-offense teams as well as anything. The trouble was, there were other Pokemon that could do that while retaining use against the more prominent bulky teams in the metagame. And Ditto's defenses were limited, so it faded into an obscure role. It was also blocked by substitutes, so that could create trouble against Pokemon like Substitute Calm Mind Jirachi. It has, however, seen sparing use on balanced teams from a few creative players who have found creative uses for its talents. For example, turning into the opponent's Magnezone and removing it for the benefit of one's Skarmory, or simply scouting out a moveset. Ditto was fringe, but its upside was so potentially enormous, it even saw sparing use in Ubers. Overall, it was nice to see this longtime fan favorite become viable at last. Ditto even saw use in VGC. Granted, it was barely at all, Imposter copies the Pokemon directly opposite you, and it's not difficult to see how that would make it even harder to pull off. Regardless, it did appear on a minimized Chansey team that made it to round 8 of the Athens Regional. But that's about all we could find for this gen. Score 1 for the little guy. Ditto and Oraz was pretty similar play-wise as Black and White, except now instead of rain-boosted sweepers, it'd mostly be revenge-killing megas. It also enjoyed Defog, helping massively with its previous entry hazard woes. It was still quite niche, although it did see various uses on teams ranging from cleaning up on hyper offense to patching up stamina pulls on balance to being surprisingly adaptable on stall. Its usage remained rare, it didn't last long, and saying it had its moments feels like overselling it because outside of gimmicky ladder shenanigans, it really was rare. But it did technically appear a few times. If one really wanted to, they could find some uses for it, since copying a Mega Charizard is no joke, but it truly take a deft hand to do so. In VGC, Ditto actually showed up again. In 2015, Jamie Miller used it to reach 7th at the UK Regionals. Very impressive for what was widely considered a gimmick, so props to him for making it work. In 2016, the year allowing 2 restricted Pokemon, Ditto actually made quite the number of appearances. Imposter in doubles works by transforming into the Pokemon across from Ditto, and in a meta with Ubers running around, potentially getting a 3rd Uber or 2nd Mega was nothing to sneeze at. Just imagine copying a boosted Geomancy Xerneas. With Focus Sash or Choice Scarf, it would be sure to get some use out of the transformation, or it would make sure to win a possible speed tie. For the sake of time, we will only be listing those who got top 8 with Ditto. However, you can find the full list of placements we found in the description below. I apologize if I get any of these names here wrong. Using Ditto, Daniel Ostikin reached 7th at Liverpool Regionals. Victor Sanchez reached 5th at the Barcelona Regionals. Christian Aravena reached 7th at the Chilean Regionals. Hung Wei Lai reached 3rd at the Taiwan Regionals. Luis Lopez reached 3rd at UK Nationals. Thomas Gabor reached 8th at the Braunschweig Regionals. German Nationals, Mark Duo and Gerard Curto reached 3rd and 5th respectively at the Italian Nationals. Guanyong Zhe reached 1st at Singapore Nationals. Juan Restrepo reached 4th at Colombian Nationals. Charlie Pastrana reached 4th at Mexican Nationals. And Fu Chi Yun reached 2nd at Hong Kong Nationals. Its niche was more useful with stronger surroundings. Score a lot for the little guy. Ditto finally established itself in OU. While nothing changed for it, the environment did. The plethora of terrifying new threats gave Ditto a plethora of new victims. Not much is scarier than getting a shift gear with Magearna, and then gaining the Soul Heart boost upon KOing something, or Kartana doing the same with Swords Dance and Beast Boost, or for Battlebond Greninja to evolve, only for Ditto to come in and copy it and threaten the threat's own team. Ditto's defense use also became consistent. Copying pressure from Defog Zapdos to help PP stall it was one thing, and in general copying various Defogs, mostly Landorus T, and once Ultra Sun and Moon came out, Tornadus T. Scouting movesets is also more valuable than ever with the plethora of options Z-moves provide. Ditto could even be cheeky and snag Stealth Rock in otherwise unfavorable situations. For example, if your Stealth Rocker is Chansey, you're not going to want to switch in and set up against Landorus T, but Ditto will be happy to. Its low HP stat needed to be considered, but it could have some sort of use in any matchup. Its greatest use, however, was destroying stall. Partnered with a Regenerator Pokemon, preferably Toxapex to absorb toxic spikes, Ditto and its essentially infinite PP could switch around forever, using the stall team's own longevity tools against them. Overall, with this environment most fitting Ditto's ability to turn its opponent's tactics against them, it has a legitimate role in the Sun and Moon OU, at long last. Ditto hasn't yet been seen too much in the 2019 VGC metagame, but recently, very recently actually, Forrest Aurelian used it to win the February special event in Canes alongside a team with Shedinja? The function of Ditto and Shedinja on the same team was briefly explained in the Shedinja video, but basically it was used to copy a dangerous Pokemon. Most of the time probably an Uber, to use it against the opponent just like in 2016. Shedinja could provide ally switch mind games in order to get Ditto or the other Pokemon on Forest's team out of harm's way. So props to Forrest for using a wacky anti-metagame combination for his team. So how good was Ditto actually? Well, it was more unusable than the likes of Ledian and Delibird for the first 4 generations, which is saying a lot. It finally came into its own when its transformation, previously hindered by its terrible bulk and speed and the fact that the opponent could choose what you could transform into, was no longer manual. It held sparing yet decent niches in Black and White and Auras. It finally showed the full extent of what it was capable of in Sun and Moon. In VGC, it had a significant number of placements in 2016, despite not being a top metagame threat. It's nice to see Ditto finally fill the role it was always meant to, just like Duplica's eventually did, with the help of Team Rocket of course. And although Ditto may not have been the best competitive Pokemon in the older games, I happen to know that the little fella was capable of some other things there. There's this crazy person called Pikasprey who has made some videos of himself attempting to beat the Pokemon games using only a Ditto in every battle. You should go watch those if you want to learn more about what the Pink Blob can do. That's it for now though, and thanks for watching this video.